This is a Main Hustle Media podcast.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Jackie O and you're listening to Militantly Mixed.
Yo, this is Rashani from the Single Simulcast. And when I'm not making you laugh or making up parody songs, I'm kicking back, listening to Militantly Mixed.
Konnichiwa, what's up, cousins? Welcome to Militantly Mixed, the podcast about race and identity from the mixed race perspective. I am your Sir Auntie, Charmaine Fury, and I am going to be sharing with you not one, but 2 episodes this week with folks that are going to be on panels at Mixed Asian Day in San Francisco, California on September 13th at the Coho Creative in Japantown. And as y'all know, because I've been talking about it for a few weeks, I'm really excited about being able to attend Mixed Asian Day in person this year. But also, I think coming off the back of Free to Be Fest and finally getting to share in-person community, mixed community space, and then knowing that in a couple weeks I'm going to be able to do it again, I've just kind of been riding the high of the in-person aspect of mixed community that I've been able to experience through Free to Be Fest and soon will be through Mixed Asian Day. I said it a couple weeks ago, getting a chance to do Free to Be Fest sort of reminded me why I do this, or like what triggered me doing this work and what kind of kept me excited about the prospect of continuing to do the work. I have struggled sometimes doing Militantly Mixed. It's a heavy emotional labor. I can't always afford to do it. And with what I've gone through over the last year and a half, losing my husband, it's just been the idea of continuing to do it through all that grief just seemed impossible at times. But I was sort of renewed a little bit by Free to Be Fest. And I'm excited to get back to doing some of this work and evolving the work into ways that I think could be more helpful to the community going forward. And in-person events are a big part of what that feeling that generated in the last month or so has been for me. So I'm going to do my best to try to make that happen a lot more often in some way, shape, or form. That being said, this week I started law school. I still can't actually believe I applied and got accepted in such a short window. I haven't really even had a chance to wrap my brain around the fact that I am committing to this new program and what impact it's going to have on my everyday life and the show, especially now that I'm kind of re-energized and ready to get back to the work. And, I probably won't have the answer right away. It'll probably be me putting my head down for school as much as possible and doing my best to stay on some form of a schedule with Militantly Mixed throughout this portion. But, since I haven't been able to be as consistent over the last year and a half since losing Tristan, it may not be that big of an issue if I'm not 100% consistent. But I do believe it'll be possible for me to be more consistent now than I have been able to be over the last year and a half. In addition to starting law school this week, I've had another big life change happen. And I'm just going to fucking share it with y'all because I'm not going to be able to hide it anytime soon. I started having hot flashes. And let me fucking tell you, even though I have been in the presence of people having hot flashes, I've sat next to people and felt the heat radiating off of their body and being stunned by how hot it was, or watching my friend just in mid-conversation, my friend Melissa, turn red and just start sweating and then apologizing for being hot in front of me, even though she has nothing to apologize for. Even those experiences, having those experiences, I still was not prepared for the kind of heat that my body would generate once hot flashes started to happen. This is an impossible thing to explain to people who haven't gone through it. And every person I've talked to who has gone through it, it's almost all the same. It's like, when did I become a volcano? That you feel like it's impossible that your body can be that hot without you dying. I'm not kidding. It is insane. And then it only lasts for like 5 to 7 minutes, and then you go back to your normal temperature. It is so fucking weird. And for anybody listening who is going through it, or partnered with someone who's going through it, or has been through it, feel free to chime in on this, because it's going to have to come up, because I don't see how I can avoid talking about this. It is wild to have this experience. I don't know what happened. I don't know if my body was just like, hey, I know you're going through something big this week starting school, but I'm going to hit you with something else. But yeah, that's what is going on. But the reason why I brought it up is because it's kind of funny how the first one happened, or what was happening during the first one. And it is connected to the show, so that's why I'm going to share it. It's so stupid. Last Sunday, I was recording the Free to Be Fest team debrief conversation. And while we were trying to keep it a little bit short, we ended up going long because, one, there was 4 of us. We had a lot of stuff we wanted to talk about. We enjoy each other's company. And so we pushed on into a longer episode than I had originally intended. But partway through that conversation, I started to have what I thought was an allergic reaction to some ashwagandha gummies, not weed gummies, just straight up vitamin gummies that I had tried right before we recorded. And since it was the first time I was trying it and it was the only new food I had tried, me having this strange body reaction, I was like, oh no, I'm having an allergic reaction. But because I haven't gone into anaphylaxis many times in my life, and I kind of know my body enough when I'm experiencing an allergic reaction, I was just going to push through it. And then as soon as we were done, I was going to pop a Benadryl and call it a day. We get through the end of our conversation, and as soon as I stop recording, I tell the ladies, like, yo, I think I'm having an allergic reaction, so I'm going to go take a Benadryl and chill out for the rest of the night. Talk to y'all later. And everybody was like, how did you keep pushing through this conversation? You should have just interrupted us. And I was like, I don't know. I'm weird. So peace out. I'm going to go take this Benadryl. I have a high medication tolerance. Nothing makes me sleepy, so I don't get sleepy on Benadryl. I took Benadryl, and then I just decided I'm going to have a low-key night. I'm going to watch Taskmaster on YouTube. It's one of my favorite UK shows. And I'm going to eat snacks, and I'm just going to relax, because that was Sunday, and I knew on Tuesday I was starting school. So I was going to give myself Sunday night and Monday night to just chill out. Then Monday comes around, and it happens again. The same sensation that I had happened again. I did think it was odd that I got hot in my allergic reaction, but I have had body heat in allergic reactions before, so I don't really know what it was. And I think maybe it was a baby one, because it wasn't nearly as intense as they have been since Sunday night. So Monday morning, it starts to happen again, and I'm just like, oh gosh, I can't believe this. I didn't have another gummy. I haven't eaten anything yet. What is going on? And I walked past my air conditioning unit thing, and I felt immediate relief, so I just copped a squat in front of it, and I sat in front of it for like 10 minutes trying to cool myself off. And it was during that I realized, oh, that wasn't an allergic reaction. That was my first hot flash. I've thought I've had hot flashes in the past, but whenever I've had a version of like body getting hot, it was never as intense as these things that have been happening this last week. So I just want to tell everybody who's listening, especially if you are experiencing perimenopause, or you have experienced menopause, or you are partnered with someone who's going through it, this is going to be a safe space. You could talk about it. You can holler at me. I would love to know what people do to treat themselves during this time. I do have a cooling blanket, but I feel like I broke it because it's not cooling me off nearly enough. Sitting in front of the AC seems to be the only thing that does it, but I don't really want to spend my life like that. Anyways, it was wild. And yeah, so I had my first allergic reaction. I had my first hot flash while recording an episode of Militantly Mixed. It's almost like my body knows I need to evolve this show into being a more, not just about mixed stuff, but about everything else going on in my life show, because it made me have my first hot flash while recording an episode. Anyways, I have no other points. I just wanted to share that. And yeah, it was fucking wild. I've had about 7 since Sunday. I'm recording this on Friday, August 29th. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. And to also be going through that at the same time that I started law school, which is also another thing I cannot believe I'm doing. This has been a really crazy week. I started with one class so far this week, which is police and prison abolition. And I'm having, it's a weird thing to say, but I'm having a blast because I'm finally learning more language around a topic that I have felt passionate about, but really didn't feel like I had enough background knowledge about. And so it's amazing. And yeah, I'll probably be talking about that a lot in upcoming episodes as well. Next week, I get into the rest of my classes. They all start on Tuesday. So I don't know. Life is going to get real crazy real soon. Hopefully I can balance the show and 3 classes at the same time, but we will see. That being said, this week and next week, it is my intention to attempt to release 2 episodes a week leading up to Mixed Asian Day. And this week, I'm going to be sharing 2 episodes with most of the people that are on the author panel at Mixed Asian Day. And this panel is called Our Stories, Our Ink, Mixed Asian Authors in Conversation. It will be moderated by Jenna Ray Cabrera. I hope I pronounced everything right. And the panelists are Rena Heinrich, Quincy Carroll, Lauren Lola, and Ingrid Hu Dahl. Also, I feel like I pronounced those correctly from our conversations, but in case I didn't, I apologize, and I will try to correct it next time. I didn't get a chance to speak to everybody all at once, so this first episode you're going to hear is going to be just a conversation between Quincy Carroll and myself, and Thursday you will hear from the rest of the folks that are on the Mixed Asian Authors panel. I had 2 really great conversations that I'm going to be sharing with you this week, and I hope it gets y'all excited for those of you who are planning to attend, or those of you who can attend but hadn't been planning it. Maybe this might entice you to go ahead and reserve your spot. Mixed Asian Day is a free event, but they do ask that you RSVP on the website for the panels that you would like to attend. Because Wacoho Creative Space can accommodate everybody that is anticipated to attend, some of the rooms do have fire capacity, levels. And so we want to make sure that we don't overpopulate a room, and we can plan around that. So head on over to mixedasianmedia.com/mixedasianday, or if you just go to the main page, you'll see how to get there, and scroll through the panels that'll be on there and hit that RSVP button for the panels that you would like to attend. I am also going to be moderating a panel at Mixed Asian Day, and that is called We Are Not a Monolith, Broadening Mixed AAPINA Identity Beyond the Asian Narrative with Militantly Mixed. And on this panel, it is my intention to talk about how it is also our responsibility as mixed Asians to broaden the stories about mixed Asian identity, again, outside of just the Asian, which is usually defined or thought of as the white East Asian identity, because that is what is represented most often in media. And there's a lot of us out there that are other things. In my case, Black, Japanese, and white. Some of the panelists will be double Asians or Blasians or Wasians, but that we are all collectively going to be talking about broadening the horizon of the media representation of mixed Asianness. And so I'm looking forward to being able to bring that to Mixed Asian Day and to get to meet all the people that I have been recording with in person for the first time as well. So moving on to today's episode, my guest today is Quincy Carroll. He is the author of Up to the Mountain, Down to the Countryside and Unwelcome. He was a former artist in residence at the Swatch Art Peace Hotel in Shanghai. And we got a chance to talk about his experience as a writer of Chinese and white American heritage, living in China and in the U.S., and how he processes writing, processes a lot of his personal anxieties or issues through his writing. And we had a really great conversation. I'm really excited to be able to share that with you. And come back on Thursday when I release the conversation I had with almost the rest of the author panel. And yeah, that's it. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our latest cousin to the Militantly Mixed family, Quincy Carroll.
My guest today is someone that I'm going to be able to meet in Meet Space in a couple of weeks, but I haven't met you in Meet Space yet. My guest today is Quincy Carroll. Why don't you introduce yourself and let everybody know why we are talking today?
Yeah, hello. Thanks so much for having me, Charmaine. My name is Quincy Carroll. I am an author and an educator living in Oakland, California. I originally grew up in Natick, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. I have a second generation Chinese mother and a white father. And ever since college, I've just been teaching and writing. I lived in China for 5 years throughout my 20s, on and off in Hunan, China, the countryside, and then Changsha, the capital, and then most recently for a few months in Shanghai, just prior to the pandemic.
I have to say I'm a little envious of the opportunity to be able to go back to the mother country and get a chance to exist in that. How was that for you?
It was eye-opening for sure. It was admittedly reactionary. I graduated from college and took a job in investment banking, and I quit after 4 days because I realized it was not what I wanted to do at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like I just was pursuing that out of other expectations that I thought people had for me or I had for myself. And when I realized that that wasn't how I wanted to wake up every morning, I sat down and was bartending for a few months while I figured out my next move. And returning to China seemed to make a lot of sense because I had studied the language for many years. I grew up going to Chinese school as a kid, but then also studied Mandarin in college. And just being able to have the time and space to begin to write. I loved to read at that time, to teach, which I saw as being something worthwhile, and also reconnecting with the side of my heritage that I feel like I hadn't fully connected with growing up.
Right. Especially with your mother being second generation, we do lose something kind of every generation, I think, access to all those cultures of ours. Do you read also? Can you read in Mandarin?
I could and still can, but it's slowly regressing with every passing year. But most of writing and reading now is on screen, so I feel like the typing gets easier as long as you can speak and can type pinyin. You're still in good hands.
I'm whatever the positive version of jealous is for that, because as a mixed Japanese, Japanese are really assimilative, more so I think than other Asian cultures. And so no Japanese at home, or very little. We did the food and we did the cultural events, but very little Japanese at home. And even when I was learning Japanese in school, my grandmother wouldn't actually talk back to me until I was well into my 30s. And that's when she was like, "Oh, you're doing a good job." And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks."
Well, that's great. Whereas my grandmother she would speak English sometimes, but speak Cantonese to me, which I don't pick up as well as Mandarin, which is what I studied more in school. So we always made it work, but it wasn't quite as fluid as it could be.
I know we have a specific reason why we're talking, but now I'm stuck on the language thing. Why did you go Mandarin versus Cantonese if that's what your grandmother spoke?
Well, so good question. I grew up going to Cantonese school every Saturday morning, very begrudgingly. But when everyone else was at home, watching cartoons and eating cereal on Saturday morning, I was getting up at 7 a.m. go to Cantonese school, which was great from a cultural standpoint. It kept the culture and that side of my family present in my life. But in terms of language retention, there wasn't a lot, especially since from the Cantonese side, a lot of the writing is in traditional characters. And then when I graduated from that school, I started going to a tutor on Saturday mornings at the same time, but my parents and I decided together to begin taking Mandarin lessons just because that seemed like the, I guess, smarter play in terms of language acquisition for the future. And then since I had taken that for a few years in high school, just on the weekends, I placed into beginner intermediate Mandarin in college, which was basically beginner Mandarin for people who had some familiarity with the language. And studied that for 4 years at Yale. And after I graduated, I went to Hunan, and that totally changed the game. Like the amount of language that I retained and the progress that I made was probably fourfold to what I did while I was in college, just in 1 year.
Yeah, the immersion aspect, I think, would be very beneficial to those of us who like kind of have access to it. When I took Japanese in college, I did have an actual Japanese professor, and he asked us in the first day of class, who of you have Japanese at home? And like 7 of us raised our hands, and he's like, you all failed my class.
Do more damage than good.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, because I'm going to have to undo everything that your family has done.
That's funny.
And I did. I got a C, and I was livid. I was so mad. I was like,
feels wrong, right? It just feels wrong.
And I'm like, team, are we on the same team? No, we are not. We are not on the same team. Okay, so the reason why we're actually talking today is that you and I are going to both be participating in Mixed Asian Day, which is taking place this year in San Francisco, California, in the Japantown I grew up going to almost like every month throughout most of my childhood. My Japanese family lives in Sacramento, and we are going to be at the Coho Creative place for the day, and you are participating in a panel that is to do with a lot of authors. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your involvement in Mixed Asian Day and what you have authored.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to stop by Mixed Asian Day last year when it was in Los Angeles. We were down there visiting my wife's side of the family, and it was a really wonderful experience, kind of the first type of thing like that I had been to. And when Alex, who organizes the day, reached out to me this year, I was very excited to participate. We'll be on a panel called Our Stories, Our Ink, Mixed Asian Authors in Conversation. So talking a little bit about the things that we've worked on and written, and also the way that our identity plays into the stories that we tell.
So how does your identity play into what you've written?
Well, it's interesting. I feel like the first 2 books that I've written, I did not approach it specifically from the point of a mixed race author. My first book is about a young college graduate moving to the countryside to teach English in China. Totally not me, but just the skeleton that I used to get the narrative going. And that protagonist is white. And the reason why I approached it from that angle was because that was the way I felt when I went back to China. Growing up.
Oh, like being in China heightened your white.
Absolutely, yeah. Which was ironic because growing up outside of Boston in a predominantly whiter area, and when I was younger, I looked more Asian than I do now. So I was always very aware of the fact that I was mixed as a child, and not to say that has faded or disappeared over the years, but maybe it's just balanced out more. But then when I went to China, it was like, I was the white guy who could speak Chinese, and so it's an interesting dynamic that I was a little uncomfortable with, and I think a lot of my writing centers around anxieties that I have and just a general way of working through life. There's a thing on TikTok that my wife loves to quote to me, which is that men will do anything to avoid going to therapy. And I think for me, it's spending, years at a time writing novels to try to process my life and process what's going around. But that first novel was more about white foreigners in Asia and kind of the phenomenon of that and my discomfort with it.
Mm-hmm. And since, have you started to think through your mixed identity in your writing?
Yeah, so then in my second novel, Unwelcome, the protagonist is mixed race. Started to explore that a little bit more. At the same time, again, more generalized insecurities and thinking about the ways in which both sides of my identity kind of make me who I am, and embracing them fully. And yeah, just looking for different ways to talk about myself as a person and the way that I see the world around me.
Mm. So if last year was your first Mixed Asian Day and basically your first kind of mixed identity affinity event, how do you feel about participating this year versus just attending?
Yeah, very excited. As I think I've been kind of talking around, for someone who's a little more white passing, I've always felt like being mixed, there's a certain privilege that comes with it, but also a certain loneliness as well. You just never really feel like, I know now it's more common to say like we're both, we're not one or the other.
Yeah.
But for so much of my life, it always felt like I was more one side than the other, or that one side of myself wasn't being seen. So to be in community with so many other people and to be able to share our stories and talk about it together, I think is a really wonderful thing.
Yeah.
That I'm excited to not only share my story, but hear from the other panelists that I'll be talking to.
Yeah, I feel like specifically with the white Asian identity, which I'm triracial, but I'm white. I don't present in a way that people know I'm Asian, I have to tell you. But in your case, or a lot of white Asian cases, I feel like if you stand next to an Asian person of any kind of Asianness and there's a white person looking at you, they'll be like, oh, you're Asian. But if you stand next to white people, possibly, I mean, it could be the reverse too. I guess it depends on what access they have. But if you stand next to a white person, they might be, oh, like you're white or something, or vice versa. Because I've heard it throughout my show. I've heard it both ways. Like if I'm around, someone will say, like if I'm around my grandmother, then they'll be like, oh, I kind of see it now. But they couldn't see it if they were standing on their own. And it's just this weird thing about visibility as a mixed person, where I don't even know if we know what we want people to see. We just know what we don't want. And it's usually when they're asking where we're from or what we are, or denying what we tell them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in my experience, it skews more towards the white passing, where people are usually surprised to hear that I have an Asian mother, or very rarely someone will say, oh yeah, of course I knew that. I saw that,
That's interesting. And I know I stare at people through a mixed lens. And so I feel like I pick it up better than people, but I look at you and I'm surprised that someone can't see it. But
well, yeah.
I've also seen a lot of people who look like you throughout the years doing my show and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of times when I'm speaking to someone and they, like you, will say, like, because I present white, and I'll go, where? Like, oh, well, like, yeah, I get it, but why do you think that? But
yeah, that's interesting to hear.
I realize I see people differently because I'm literally, that's what I do for my job. It's talk to mixed people all day. So do you feel, I assume you did because you kind of alluded to it, but I had this experience when I went to Japan for the first time. Like going home kind of took away what I felt was like, I felt the least amount of Japanese I've ever felt in my life when I was in Japan. Did you have kind of a version of that?
Yeah, absolutely. People would, I think I mentioned earlier, people would praise me for my ability to speak Mandarin when they thought I was white. But then the minute they hear that I have a Chinese mother, it's like they could not be less impressed. And they think that, they start pointing out all the problems with my pronunciation or the word choices that I use.
Right.
So it's very funny how the switch flips so quickly.
That is such a very specific, and I want to say it's one of the things that crosses almost all of Asianness, not specific countries or specific regions, is if they think you're not them, you're doing a good job. Yeah. But if they think you are them, it's like a tragedy that you're not better at it than you are as a mixed person who lives in another country and doesn't have that much access. It's kind of rough.
And I will say back then, I was first in China after college around 2008, 2009, and that was kind of like a golden age to be a foreigner in China. The relationship between the two countries was so good, and a lot of my friends, really loved American culture and wanted to learn more about that. Whereas I feel like now, if I were to go back, I would want to maybe emphasize my Chinese side of my heritage a little bit more and see what it's like. From things I've heard from other friends still in China, it's a little less friendly towards foreigners now.
I would wonder if I lived in Mexico for a little while, and I'm not Spanish or Latin in any way, but sometimes I'm viewed that way, and so people get upset when I don't speak Spanish.
Same, yeah, occasionally.
But when I would tell people I'm learning, they would back off. Or if other American-born Latino people would be there, and you say like I'm practicing, then like in Mexico they would calm down on their like ire towards you. They'd be like, "Oh, okay, you're practicing, good." I would wonder if that works in Asia, in different Asian countries. Like in Japan, if I say I speak a little Japanese and my grandmother's Japanese, I don't get the reception of like, "Oh, it's so good that you're trying." Like you said, it's like once they know you're of them, you're not doing a good job.
Absolutely.
I wonder if there is anywhere in Asian culture, any Asian cultures, where they would like appreciate that you're trying and understand that you did grow up in another country.
Definitely, and I have noticed that. I think humility goes a long way, especially in Chinese and Asian culture. So the more that you can play into that, they're always once you get past the surface level interactions, they're very welcoming and very encouraging.
That's good. Do you have anything kind of on the docket that you're working on now, or that you'll be releasing anytime soon, or have recently released?
I'm definitely working on something. In terms of releasing anytime soon, we'll have to. I don't know if I can really set a timeline or give you a specific date, but I'm working on a third novel now, which is based on the time that I spent in Shanghai. I was there for 6 months as part of a writing residency at the Peace Hotel, which is right near the Bund, so a very central area of Shanghai. A really wonderful experience where I got to live with other artists, a lot of Chinese artists, a lot of Western artists. So that was interesting to be in that mixed cohort like that. And the story is one of lost friendship, which is something that at this stage of my life, I just turned 40 this year, something that's becoming a little more present. And again, a source of anxiety, if that's the right word, but also just something that I'm focused on thinking about and noticing around me as I grow older.
Yeah.
And this is also a mixed race protagonist, although I haven't really delved too far into that right now. I'd say I'm about a third of the way or a half of the way through the first draft, but my drafts tend to be quite polished and finished from the beginning because I write very, very slowly and just edit every line as I go. But it is a story that has kind of grabbed my passion and interest, and it always takes me a while to settle on something that will do that for me so I can make it through a whole novel. But to be more specific, just a character who has been living in Shanghai for several years and uses people watching as an opportunity to explore the city and find new areas, new interactions, meet new people. And while doing this one day, comes across an old friend from his previous life in America who he's fallen out of touch with. And then the story of them reconnecting and kind of questions of whether or not many of the relationships we have are just due to proximity or convenience, and how long lasting they really are.
That's actually a really interesting topic. I'm late 40s, and I would say I've experienced multiple like losses of friendships, and they're just as hard as like I think losing a relationship. I don't think we talk enough about the grief of losing close friends. But when my husband died, I lost a chunk of people, and I think it's because people are so uncomfortable with grief, or it finally gave people a way out. Like if they weren't very invested in the relationship, I think. So it's been an interesting thing of like figuring out who some of my long-term friends are, and not because of like my husband being gone. Yeah, that's a great topic. I would be really interested in learning more about that too.
Thank you.
I think we're getting almost to the end. So I'll talk a little bit again about Mixed Asian Day. So you haven't really experienced many affinity days, but did it feel, when you experienced the last time, did it feel like you were touching your full picture, your whole mixed ass self, versus just having to perform one or the other?
That's an interesting question. I think so. Yeah, I found out about Mixed Asian Day last year, kind of very late, like I think the day of, or maybe the day before, and I went over there with very little planning. But I did invite another mixed friend who lived in the Los Angeles area, so we went together, and that did kind of add to the feelings of the day, that we were together and experiencing it. And we hadn't seen each other in a few years, so it was nice to reconnect that way. Seeing, the marketplace and listening to the panels that I went to, it was very affirming, and it was nice to know that type of space exists.
Yeah, I agree. I've been doing this show for 7 years, and while I haven't been able to do, COVID popped up in the middle of all of that too, so isolation became a big thing. So I didn't really get an opportunity to be around that many in community mixed people, usually one or two at a time. But in the last couple of weeks, doing Free to Be Fest, which is about more general mixedness, and knowing I was coming up to Mixed Asian Day soon, which is more specific mixedness, I feel like there is something, like it kind of heals those aspects of my youth, when I wasn't either believed by what when I told people what I was, or if they saw me with my parents or my grandparents and they were confused, that I didn't have to lose a bit of myself to try to explain who I was. And it was really nice to have that experience. Something I definitely want to do more of. So I hope that we have more opportunities like this, but I'm looking forward to getting a chance to meet you in person. And are you going to be able to share, will you be selling any of your books in the marketplace, or are you just?
Yeah, I'll absolutely bring some of my books. I don't know about in the marketplace, but after the panel, for sure.
Okay. All right, great. Why don't you tell people how to find you and find your books before we get out of here?
Yeah, sure. My website, quincycarroll.com, has a lot of information. I'm on Instagram as @Quinzoro, QUINZORRO. Shout out to my friend Kit for making that one. And other than that, I hope a lot of your audience are able to come out to the panel at Mixed Asian Day and say hello in person.
Yeah, that'd be great. I will put all that in the show notes so people can check on it if they want to. And I guess that's it. So see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much, Charmaine. Really appreciate you.
Militantly Mixed is a Main Hustle Media podcast, produced and hosted by me, Charmaine Fury. Music is by David Bogan, The One. Please follow us on social media, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook @Militantly Mixed. If you'd like to become a Patreon of Militantly Mixed, please go to patreon.com/Charmaine Fury for a monthly sponsorship, or paypal.me/Militantly Mixed for a one-time only donation. And if you like what you hear on Militantly Mixed, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to be your mixed ass self. Main Hustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.